Hello. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah. So we are waiting for our chief guest, Ms. Kanimozhi Karunanidhi to join. When she will join us, we will start the inaugural session of this two-day international webinar. So dear participants, be tuned to the YouTube channel and be attentive to the talk. You have the chance. Our guest for the next.
Welcome to you.
Welcome,
Thank you. Where is the
Dr. Muhammad
be on the time?
Okay.
He will join soon, ma'am. He will join me.
Yeah.
الدكتور مريم هاشمي أنا معكم.
English, so you will support me.
Yeah. So our chief guest for the inauguration session, Dr. Kanimozhi is here. So I invite Mr. Shahina for inviting the guests and
Abdulla Kuti. Welcome to the inaugural section of the two-day international webinar titled "A Pen in the Time of Pandemics," hosted by the English. Pleasure to be on the present occasion for heartily welcoming our honorable chief guest. It's not only my privilege, but the honor for our institute to host you as a dignitary inaugurator for this session. I generously welcome the Honorable MP, Ms. Kanimozhi, the poet. The very presence of you is in your extremely busy schedule are the reflection of the importance you give for education. I see Maryam, Dr. Maryam Hashmi,
and Department of Head of the Department, Shahina Miss, and other my colleagues, and my dear students and respected audience. Before I enter into the presidential talk, let me thank our respected chief guest, the Honorable Member of Parliament, renowned poet and activist, the great orator, and moreover a great human being, Ms. Kanimozhi Karunanidhi, for accepting our humble request despite of her busy schedules. Ma'am, we are really honored and blessed by your priceless presence. Thank you very much. Here, all are known that literature didn't born independently, but it was born along with Homo sapiens. It reflected the life, hope, greediness, and dreams. If you can dig deep into literature, you can travel with time, observing past, present, and even future. Since literature is all about our life, it brought many branches of literature too. I don't want to go deep into literature since my audience is well aware of the literature and branches of literature. But literature like prison literature, as we are all hear about that, expert literature, and very lightly, pandemic literature are the real reflections of human sufferings, pain, and hopelessness. What I feel is that this pandemic is really a blessing in disguise. It brought us together close enough to say that you are not important. We were actually moving with the pace of the time, and COVID-19 brought a halt to that pace. It said, watch out your steps. You don't have to hurry. it reminded us to take a deep breath and keep calm. Now we are suffering pandemic globally in the space that we were supposed to suffer it locally. What I understand is that the classic and the most entertained literatures are which talked about the sufferings, pain and hopelessness of human race. And of course, this pandemic will be a reason for the birth of notable works too. There is no doubt. Before concluding my speech, let me thank our Department of English for conducting this international webinar, especially for selecting this very relevant topic and very renowned guests. Your works always much appreciated. I don't want to prolong my words. I officially invite our chief guest, Ms. Kanimozhi Karunanidhi, to deliver her speech and officially inaugurating this session. Please, ma'am, welcome.
Thank you. Can I start? Yeah. I'm very grateful to your college, Syed Muhammad Ali Sehab Dangal Memorial Arts and Sciences Women's College from Malappuram to invite me to address the students during the time of a pandemic. And very interestingly, you've given the topic also as pen in the times of pandemic. And it's a very interesting initiative because we always have said and believed that the pen is mightier than the sword. So I appreciate your college for organizing a program like this, a webinar, and inviting different guests. And I also like to congratulate the principal, Dr. Anwar Shafi, the vice principal, Dr. Mohammed, and the head of the department of the English department, Ms. Shahina. And I know this college was started so that we will have an inclusive growth, an inclusive education brought to everybody. To make in education inclusive was the idea and was the philosophy behind this college, and the great and respected and revered Tangalji had brought, and initiated this, and we have to appreciate the vision they had for this country and the society, especially when today we are looking at a new education policy which does not talk about inclusiveness, which does not talk about equality, which does not talk about bringing everybody in and giving everybody an opportunity. So today, when we look back, just the idea of this college, is from a visionary, and we had so many great visionaries in this country who took education to everybody and made social justice a possibility in this country. And with that, yes, I think we will go into the topic, pen in the times of pandemic. I think many of us believe that many people use this opportunity to say that, human beings have moved away from morality, moved away from the right and the wrong. And this is the divine punishment which society and the world at large has to face, because, human values have moved away from morality. And this is an opportunity many people, including politicians and, many religious heads use to, spread religion or to create fear among the people. But the truth is that the pandemic does not differentiate between the good and the bad and the evil. The pandemic does not differentiate between any religion or any caste, countries. We've seen many pandemics before. This is not the first we are facing today. The world has crossed many. The world has come out, humanity has come out successfully from many pandemics. We've seen the plague, we've seen the scarlet fever, we've seen the, so many. And we have, successfully overcome that. And we have also understood that we can make a victory, we can win a particular situation only when humanity comes together and stands together and fight whatever it is. We cannot say that there is no truth when we say this is a kind of a punishment, because in a way it is, because of what we have been doing to nature, of what we've been doing to ourselves, our lives. We have become like the principal, when he in his inaugural speech said that we have all become self-centered. We've started looking at ourselves as individuals. We have forgotten and moved away from the fact that we are a social animal. We have to live together. We have started believing that the individual is more important. Our growth, our achievements, our needs, our wants are the most important thing today. And that is why there is a mindless attitude, the mindless way of looking at the environment today. How we deplete environment, how we look at environment. We talk about ease of doing business. And today we are moving this entire earth towards making it into a desert. We don't care about the climate change. We don't care about what happens to the animals in the wild. We don't care about how many forests are burning. I mean, we know today, we understand. It is our own making. This whole pandemic is our own making. We destroyed the forests. We brought the bats which were in the forest and the pangolins, out of the forest with the viruses they carried. And we cannot escape. You can be very rich. You can be running away, fleeing from. I mean, we've seen all this happen. I'd like to quote from a very interesting book which was written, many years ago. I just like to read a part of it, which was written about London. Thursday night, the panic outrush for this country began. Imagine the grandfather saying this to the grandson. Imagine, my grandsons, people thicker than the salmon run you have seen on the river, pouring out of the cities by millions, madly over the country, in a vain attempt to escape the death. You see, they carried the germs with them. Even the airships of the rich, fleeing for mountain and the desert, carried the germs. This is exactly what we face. This was written by in about the Scarlet Plague, and it was published by Jack London, and in 1912. So even today, we saw this happening. Even today, people were fleeing the cities. They were taking the COVID virus along with them, and they went to the villages and they were spreading it there. And people were, you can be rich. We've always believed that, money can protect you, can isolate you from a lot of things, and insulate you from a lot, natural disasters. Yes, maybe, if you're rich, you can escape the flood or something else, at times. But when it's a germ which is attacking us because of what we've done, definitely nobody can escape that. And today we've come to understand that humanity together as a whole has to stand together to fight this. And people have, I think, before, when the plague came, People died, by the lakhs. And after that, there was a change in society. The serfdom had to come to an end. Workers became a very scarce thing. You couldn't get workers the way they used to get before. So after that, the workers could demand their wages. They could fight for their rights because they had become a scarce commodity. Today, we are seeing workers move away from, we saw what happened to the migrant laborers. We took them for granted. We didn't care about them. But today we see in front of our eyes, when they walk back, no government cared. They walked thousands of kilometers with the luggage, with the children. Nobody cared. The governments went to the extent of finding fault with the workers. They blamed them for their plight. But today you see the companies bringing them, flying them down because they need them back. And today I think this pandemic has taught us a very, very, very important lesson. And that is, we cannot ignore environment. We cannot live our selfish lives, the way we continue. Because a pandemic doesn't bring out only the good in people. If it is a punishment like what people say, it hasn't brought out the good. We see, I don't like to talk politics here, but the truth is, we see people making this into an opportunity to be corrupt, to use it to the hilt, because you don't have to account for a disaster fund. You can spend it. You don't have to wait for a tender process. You can just spend it. So this is what we are seeing today. A rampant corruption, exploiting people during the pandemic. And this is what has happened before. Because literature is we've seen many literatures talking about it, many works of art talking about it, poetry is talking about it. What a common person suffered during the pandemic. The kind of it's happened before. It's history repeating itself with newer lessons to us today. That is all. But we've seen people, it has documented, literature has documented what has happened before in the previous pandemics. And we have to wait to see what we have to write about what we are going through. But one poetry, I mean, I can't recollect it verbatim, but I've read about, I think it's a Sri Lankan poet. He compares two situations, one in Canada and one, unfortunately, in Tamil Nadu. He says that in Tamil Nadu, a doctor who worked for COVID patients, when he died, people said, don't come and bury him here. But an Indian doctor, when he died in Canada, people stopped in front of their house, honked in respect for the doctor. And there was a relative to acknowledge that respect the city was paying to that doctor. And these are the two situations he compares. We've seen so many painful experiences. The migrant workers walking back is a story, is a literature. There are, I mean, so many experiences. Small scale industries have been shut down. Education has been affected. And we are not talking about it because in some way, smaller journalists, if you work for a huge organization, even there, people are being threatened. People are being threatened to, when they talk about the problems they see, they face. Opinions are being strangled. There are calls from positions of very, very high places to newspaper organizations, to television organizations, to the heads of it, saying, why are you talking about these issues? Just think of the plight of small reporters. Today we have YouTube channels, you have smaller print media. The plight of them. whose voices are being strangled. How many of them have been arrested? This is the plight of the writers also. If you want to talk about how many years do you have to wait? Because there are experiences, there are writers who've been affected, whose lives have been turned upside down by this pandemic. So we have to document it. That is the duty of literature, to document the stories, the pains, the triumphs. It is not only sad stories. It is about how humanity overcame this, how we crossed this, and what lessons we've learned from this. If you ask me, I think the most important lesson for us to learn from this is how we treat the environment and how we treat fellow human beings. These are the two lessons which I think, personally, I think is what we have to learn from this pandemic. Because if we continue to disrespect nature, if we continue to treat environment like this, and because the new environment policy which the government is bringing today, it is only about ease of doing business. If you don't have employment today, another government comes, it can bring in an industry. But if a forest is entirely destroyed to put up a factory, how do you recreate it? How do you bring that environment balance again? If we destroy an entire species of animals, how do we bring it back? How do we bring back that balance which the earth needs for all of us to survive? We depend on each other. We don't realize it. We depend on the trees. We depend on the plants. We depend on the vegetation. We depend on the animals around us, the insects. So this mindless growth, this mindless survival that only human beings have to survive, is going to take us in a completely wrong direction. And I think this is the lesson we have to learn from this. And I think the duty of the writers and the readers, because now I think there's a lot of revived interest in books which were written about the pandemics which humanity has faced. And I think most of you must be familiar with those books like Love in the Times of Cholera, which I think most of us have read. And there is a writer who has put together a list, and I've read a few of them, and I would like to share that list with you, because you might also be interested in reading that. A Pale Horse and a Pale Rider by Catherine Annie Porter. Twilight in Delhi. This is about the flu by Ahmad Ali. The Plague by Albert Camus. And of course, Love in the Times of Cholera by Market. And another important, very important book is about the Black Death, the Decameron by Giovanni. And I think there are many more very, very important books like the Nemesis and the Mask of the Red Death. So these are very important works, written about the pandemics. And I think people have, revived their interest in reading about this. And I think there is a lot of literature which is going to come about what we are going through now. And I think people have started working on scripts about what we go through to write films and theater. Everything is going to be written about what we go through. But I think more than all that, the lessons we have to learn and to understand that the society And this country is an inclusive country, and it's a secular country. And we cannot divide this country in the name of religion, language, caste, community. And our strength lies in the great diversity of this country, which we have to celebrate to create the unity. There is no unity in this country without our diversity. And we have to celebrate that diversity and stand together as one to fight this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your very visionary speech and very thankful to your thought-provoking words that how far the human being have to be down to earth, how far we have to think about the people, animals, environment, and the disabled and the marginalized people around us. So I invite our Vice Principal Muhammad sir to have a short feedback and start the interactive session with our chief guest. So I invite Mr. Muhammad sir for this session.
Okay. Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Madam. You have done it very well by inaugurating our session. We are so pleased to listen to you. There are some persons from outside the country in our group. For them, I am introducing you. They might have not acquainted with you. Kanimozhi Karunanidhi. She is an Indian honorable politician, poet, and journalist. We have not so much politicians as poets and journalists. She is a member of parliament representing Thoothukudi constituency in Lok Sabha. She was also a former MP represented Tamil Nadu in Rajya Sabha. And Kanimozhi is the most important thing is our honorable chief guest is the daughter of the former chief minister of Tamil Nadu, M. Karunanidhi, and she is reckoned by the followers and all the country as the literary heir of her father, as she is active in Tamil literature. Our honorable guest penned two much acclaimed works in Tamil like Sigarangalil, Uraikiradhu, Kaalam, and Agathinai, Paarvaigal, Karukkum Marudhaani, and Karuvarai Vaasanai. Madam, if I misspelled your books,
No,
I'm
okay.
so sorry. I don't know Tamil. Her literary works also were translated into English, Malayalam, Telugu and Kannada. We know her stance Kanimozhi's stance against pseudo-nationalism built up on fake arguments and rejecting regional existence. And also she speaks in parliament and outside to defend our pluralistic nature of the country and nation. So we are so pleased to be here, madam, and we are thankful on behalf of our institution, Department of English, and the community who are listening to you. Okay, thank you, madam.
Thank you.
So the floor is open for questions and interactions. So the participants, please raise your hands for I would like the professors Abdulla and Dr. Abdulla and Dr. Maryam and Hashmi to have a short interaction with our speakers.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Oh, it was such a wonderful, thought-provoking speech. In fact, you mentioned in passing about the national education policy.
Yes.
So we are really concerned. So as a member of parliament, how do you look at the future of India if national education policy is implemented in the way that it is envisaged now?
We will go back to, I like to say in quotes, good old days, which was good old days for some people, one section of society. where only some people could be educated and the rest of us could not be educated. We were left out of the education system, and education will go back to be, something for the privileged few. Because I like to give you, I'm sure there are examples of schools in Kerala also. They mention in the new education policy that, if you have less than 30 students, you have to close down a school, and you make it into cluster schools, cluster campuses, where they move the schools. See, in Tamil Nadu, there are schools even with one student and one teacher, where in the mountains where students can't come. And we also know in rural areas, if the school is very far away, the parents will not be able to drop the very young children to school, and girls will not be allowed to go to school. That is the whole premise behind running schools, even if there are 5 students or even less than 30 students. This new education policy says that they will close schools. So you're actually pushing a lot of students out of schools who are already underprivileged, who don't have the opportunities to go to school. Then you say you have exams and in 3rd, 5th and 9th, and they're encouraging you to take up vocational training. This is not a developed nation where everybody has exposure and the parents are educated and children can make a choice with exposure and understanding that in the 9th standard the children can decide, and the parents are also well informed to make a understanding choice of what their future is going to be. So in the 9th standard, they want to make sure that whether you want to take skill training or vocational courses, or you want to go to universities. The next step is in Tamil Nadu, we are against NEET, which is actually preventing many students from rural areas and deprived backgrounds, and many women students from getting into medical colleges. Now they want to bring something called the entrance exams for even arts and science colleges. So that is going to again become a big block for students from underprivileged backgrounds, rural backgrounds, and deprived communities. So this is again going to move education away from societies where, especially in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, we've struggled so much to make education available to everybody. And Kerala, when you talk about higher education, or Tamil Nadu, we've already reached the goals which the new education policy wants to reach in 2030. We've touched 50 and we've crossed 50. So who's this education policy for? If you're talking about states where they are in their 20s, the percentage of higher education is 20%. You have a separate policy for them. What are you going to do for us? We've already achieved your targets. So should we wait without doing anything? So this policy is not going to help anybody. And in India, the issue is not only economic issues. We have something called the caste in this country. And if you do not address that, if you do not include that, and you don't have even there's not one mention of social justice or reservation in the entire new education policy. How can this policy apply to India if you don't address these very important factors? So this new education policy has to be scrapped, and something which addresses the concerns and the problems of Indian students, which is inclusive, which is secular in nature, has to be brought.
Ma'am, how far can states resist this in a federal system where if the states and the center is in conflict, the center's decision shall prevail? So how far can the states resist this?
See, the states have to continue to resist it because, as you beautifully said, it is a federal system. So it is not the central government. And I think how can somebody in the central government decide what student, the history the student has to learn, or the geography the student in Malappuram has to learn, or in Thoothukudi has to learn? You cannot. So I think the state governments have, the education has to be given back to the state. It is now taken away from the state. I think the central government should stop interfering in the education policy. The state governments are the ones who have to decide the state policy, and it has to be given. And I think the state governments, I mean, DMK is not even, the government in Tamil Nadu, but we are resisting it. And I think the political parties and people who care about education and the state governments, we all have to come together and resist it. Just because they have a majority, I don't think the government has the right to go ahead with it without taking all our considerations and concerns into account. And change will come. I mean, it has always come. So we cannot give up hope. Change will come.
Thank you, ma'am, for being optimistic.
Okay.
Yes.
I thank you once again that in your busy schedule, you have joined in this webinar. And also, I wonder, you have gone through a lot of books, and you particularly mentioned so many pandemic books. How you go through your time schedules in this type of literary activities? That's
I started more as a writer before I joined full-time politics. So I had enough time reading then. And even now, I think I travel to Delhi and I travel to places. So that flying time gives you, uninterrupted time to read. And I think I should be grateful to the corona also for giving me time to read. I think we all do things which we want to do and we find time for it. So it's not that difficult. And my father has always put me to shame because he wrote so much. He's achieved much more in politics than I can ever. So he always had the time for friends. He always had the time to walk. He always had the time to read 10 or 12 newspapers and for his party people. So I think if you and he always read. There was not a day which he would not read a book. And he also was, he wrote every day. He wrote letters to the party people in Murasoli, the party paper. And he wrote literary works. So he always found time. I think our inspiration comes from that if you want to, you can always find time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
So it is very happy that we have discussions and interactions with anybody, and we are thanked to a great poet, Karunanidhi, and her son, her daughter, who are serving the country to, to keep the unity of the country in diversity, and keep the Dravidian and the linguistic diversity of the country alive forever. So we are very thankful from this part of the world, and we have many guests from around the world. So we, from the heart of these organizations, we thank you for being here and participating and inaugurating this section. And now we have to move to our keynote address for this session. Dr. Maryam Hashmi will address this session. So for the organizers, for the college, we heartfully thank Kanimozhi once again for being with us for this inaugurating this a two-day international webinar. So now I would like to call upon Nusaiba from HOD of department to introduce Dr. Maryam Al-Hashmi for the audience for this session.
Thank you, Abdulla sir. Hope that I'm audible to all. Good afternoon, everybody. Now we are in the second session. The topic pen and pandemic will be dealing with Dr. Maryam Abdulla Al-Hashmi. To talk about her, presently she is working as assistant professor in higher college of technology. She possesses PhD in literature and criticism from the College of Islamic and Arabic Studies. And she also possesses PG in Arabic Business Administration, Diplomacy in International Affairs. And she worked as a teacher in the Ministry of Education, authored 4 books in Arabic literature and a number of articles in various journals. She has won prestigious awards including Best UAE Author in 2017 and also I'll Always Award for Creativity in 2018. And recently she is participating in many local and international seminars and giving lectures. And I know she is the right person to talk about this topic. Ma'am, we are welcoming wholeheartedly to this virtual platform of Sayyid Muhammad Ali Shia Tangal College. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nusaiba. I'm so happy to be with my friends. I'm thank you again to Dr. Muhammad Abid, because he was the reason and the connection between this institution. My voice is hearing. Okay. Right. Dr. Muhammad and everyone, please excuse my English language. I speak Arabic. So if there is any mistake, please ignore it, and you can correct me anytime. But inshallah, I will try to give you what I am to talk about in a simple way, with the simple words as well. A pandemic is not a new event that has caused human suffering. Humanity has known suffering since its existence on this earth. This is something we all know about. Most of us know the fact that what matters is how we feel and how we look outside. Therefore, I will not focus on the pandemic as a cause of creativity, because it is one of the reasons which gave us the time to read more, to feel how blessed we are, but rather the creative process itself. And the creative process for me is writing, as an author, as a writer in the Arab world. So writing for me, while the pandemic, and reading as well, was like the cure and like the meditation of facing what's happening in the world and what's happening in my personal life. Why do we write? How do we write? What we write? When to write? For whom we write? These are the questions we must search for answer to. And these are the right questions. I consider writing as great pleasure. Writing for everyone like eating and sleeping. And I will concentrate here for sleeping. We don't often think of sleep like a pleasure as the greatest pleasure. But those who have sleepless nights know the deep satisfaction of sleep. The same is true of writing. We think of it as no big deal, but who are lucky to be literate. To write is to continue the human lineage. To write is to pass on the dream and tell its truth. Get to work. Nothing fancy, begin within the ordinary. But that along with sleep, writing can be the greatest pleasure as well. Before I continue, I would like to share a video, if you give me the chance to share some short videos, please. The host, can you give me? Or it's not possible, I'm not sure.
We try we ask the person, Shadia and Muhammad Aslam. Can we share the screen?
Ma'am, could you mail me the video?
So it takes time, it's fine. It's no big deal, no
Okay.
problem. There is a question, why silence? Behind writing, behind words, is no words. We need to know about that place. It gives us a larger perspective from which to handle language. In a silent retreat, our thoughts, memories, and feelings have a chance to come home to us. And then at some point, we delight in our silent practice. Our thoughts, feelings, memories, understandings, all of it settled down. And we are where we are. And this very moment sound like a glitch, but the floorboards are in front of us. Our friend is sitting across from us. The wind and the morning doves cry, the hair on our arms, the nose on our face. We are with it all. We do not end at this bag of skin. In silence, an unspoken closeness rise up between you and the other people in the room. Someone cries in the corner and you feel it. Dr. Abed, can you please, before I continue, can you please share my my email to the lady so I really would like to share this
Okay,
material. Please.
Doctor, please share. I will send my mail ID through WhatsApp.
No, ma'am, you can.
Now it's fine. Yeah, now it's okay.
Ma'am, you can share now from your system only.
Yes.
They are enabled.
Yes.
There it is.
Yes. This is a great talk about writing, why we write, about the words. As I told you earlier, that writing is like meditation, and the most we need with this pandemic and through the crisis we face in life, not only with the pandemic, the problems, how sadness we feel regarding anything. Writing can be the answer and can be the best solution for all the problems.
Audio is.
The audio is using.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Dr. Maryam Hashmi, it's not audible.
Audible.
Dr. Maryam Hashmi,
Yes, there is no voice, sorry.
there is no voice.
Okay.
Not audible.
Share, okay, sorry. Sorry about that. I have to share computer sound. Yeah.
So that they could hear colors or see sounds. And many writers were fascinated by this subject, myself included. But she cut me off and a bit impatiently and said, yeah, I know all of that. It's called synesthesia. We learned it at school. But my mom is reading your book and she says there's lots of food and ingredients and the long dinner scene in it, she gets hungry at every page. So I was thinking, how come you don't get hungry when you write? And I thought maybe you could taste words. Does it make sense? And actually it did make sense. Because ever since my childhood, each letter in the alphabet has a different color, and colors bring me flavors. So for instance, the color purple is quite pungent, almost perfumed. And any words that I associate with purple taste the same way, such as sunset is a very spicy word. But I was worried that if I tell all of this to the teenager, it might sound either too abstract or perhaps too weird. And there wasn't enough time anyhow because people were waiting in the queue. So it suddenly felt like what I was trying to convey was more complicated and detailed than what the circumstances allowed me to say. And I did what I usually do in similar situations. I stammered, I shut down, and I stopped talking. I stopped talking because the truth was complicated, even though I knew deep within that one should never, ever remain silent for fear of complexity. So I want to
So everyone is too busy talking. And if you refine your quiet over time, you will carry something much needed in our world. You will carry peace inside you. Our society is based on talk, 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 talk. But where does this talk come from? It comes out of silence. Sound and silence are interconnected. The silence in which the true secret retreat are conducted seems extreme in our society. And I believe the Arabs and all societies are the same in this way. But what is really extreme in our society is talk non-stop all the time to communicate, cover up, divert, share, hide, lie, fill time, waste time. I don't think silence is holy. It's another perspective, a way for our chatty society to stretch. It's important to know the other half of the coin. Otherwise, we are off center. often running from the intimacy of quiet, the discomfort of just being with another person or with a room with people, not to mention how much we miss when we are always talking. We forget to receive the environment and to be aware of person we are talking to. In the retreat, we do read loud our own writing, and in group sessions, we also discuss books we've been assigned. But the background of silence from wake up to sleep and through meals gives us more thoughtful discussion. And we learn to listen better to each other. It's a slow conversation, not competition or monologue. Listen, think, and respond. Then, as a group, we grow together in our understanding and appreciation of a book. And also, I would like to share, there is Carlos Zafon, the great, of course, the previous was Elif Shafak, the great Turkish writer, and Carlos Zafon, the Spanish, who we lost, I think, last month. And he's talking about his experience, why he writes.
The great frustration of my life, if I have one, probably is that I never had a music education. I wanted to have a full-blown music education. I would have loved that, to have that opportunity to really develop whatever talent I had for music. I could never do it, so I became an amateur musician, self-taught. I think that because I'm interested in writing music and composing, that the piano itself, perhaps, is the orchestra, is the instrument.
A sensational talent sparked from a desire for using words, communicating, and storytelling.
I tend to see writing and language from a similar perspective. I see music. For me, music is just another language. When I'm writing prose, when I'm writing fiction, I am very aware of this, and I tend to think as an orchestrator.
The bond between language and music can be traced back for centuries. Even before Spain's greatest writer, Miguel de Cervantes, the connection, a mutual stimulation.
I think of every word in terms of color, of timbre. I think about the dynamics. I think about different sections to achieve a narrative effect, to create tension, to create a pace, to create tempo, to create many effects of light and dark. And when I'm writing something and constructing a sentence, a paragraph, I think of it as a piece of music that needs to tell a story. But the real essence of a storytelling is about the staging, about how we tell the story, how we work the language. And this is something that I feel it's true for any genre, for anything. And if we are telling the story in an efficient, in the right way, in a way that really does justice to the characters, to the world, to the universe, to the narrative we want to transmit, what the reader will receive is that. Is the story, is the characters, is the world, but the essence, the vehicle, the structure that really enables that to happen is the language, and that is the first and single foremost important element in any piece of creative writing.
And he has a great book which he wrote about pandemic recently. Okay. Ideally, Through the practice of silence, we can roll from talk to response, not stuck or frozen in either. Silence can be the door to listening. I think pandemic give us the chance to feel the silence, to be with ourselves. Which one of the greatest cornerstones to writing and also to eventual peace within you and in this world? What is writing practice? Why we write? Of course, as I told you, and many of writers know that the writing is something a must. We have to read, we have to feel, and we have to live many lives. Writing gives us the chance to do this. We were taught in meditation to continually cut thought or cut through our wandering, obsessive thoughts and come back to the breath. We do understand the importance of this, how we learn to let go, not hold on, but we also notice that they weren't just delusion, unreal, rambling, and they didn't go so easily. Only the breath as an object of meditation made for skinny practice, then we are ready for the fat. Writing practice is a perfect complement to meditation practice, the fat and the thin, the precise and the clear with the wild and woolly. When you think about it, how can anything be excluded? What shall we do? Keep your hand moving. If you say you will write for 10 minutes, 20, an hour, keep your hands going, clutching the pen, but don't stop. This is your chance to break through your mind to the way you really think, see and feel. You might end up writing about toast, your sore throat, but it will be alive, really. Yes, even who have never left home, never stepped out of your gray suit, even you have wild mind, the vibrating force below your discursive thinking, that true connection. It is natural to human life. Get to work and contact it and be connected to the life with writing. If you accept your mind at whatever level it is as you begin to write, if you don't flight it, it will eventually settle. Feel free to write the worst junk. You have to turn over your mind a lot for the gems to pop up.
Sorry, ma'am, it's some unwanted voices came in. So you can continue, proceed.
Yes, and really it's true secret retreat, and in writing practice we are not looking for the gems but a way to meet and accept our whole mind. Writing down the boring, the complaining, the violent, obsessive, destructive, shameful, weak thoughts, allow us to see them. Make friends with those parts of ourselves. They won't then rule us. They won't be running from them. We won't be running from them or battling them in meditation or in our life. Writing practice asks all parts of us to come forward, and then we go out of the way and stop judging. Be specific. Not car but Bentley. Not fruit but banana. Lose control. Say what you want to say, not what you think you should say. How you root something is to continue doing it. In the process, you have a relationship with your own mind and accepting your thoughts, whatever they are. You actually learn to let go of them. This is the practice. There are some simple tips I would like to share with the people, and I hope that I persuade some of you to do the writing practice. Generate ideas and sketch plan before attempting a first draft. Spend some time generating ideas, ask yourself questions, explore your insight with anyone willing to listen. Then you should be collecting information and experimenting with ways of focusing and organizing it to reach your readers and to reach your audience, and first to reach yourself. You might don't know yourself unless you write about yourself. Assess the writing solution. Begin by taking a look at the writing situation in which you find yourself. The key elements of writing situation includes your subject, your purpose, your audience. Where will your facts? Then you have to search for the information, details, examples. Can you develop your topics from personal experience, or will you need to search for relevant information through observation or interviews or readings? Reading is an important way to deepen your understanding about yourself, about life, about how to handle issues in life, how to get through the pandemic, for example, how to treat the environment surrounding you, how to be grateful of what you have. Reading gives you this chance to know more. At the end, I would like to end with a quote from Tagore. Everything comes to us that belongs to us, if we create the capacity to receive it. And we can create the capacity with writing. We can receive the light through writing and reading. We can receive ourselves through knowing ourselves more. And this comes, I believe, also with reading and writing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for being with us and having a philosophical talk on silent speaking and writing, and how the words of the heart to be translated to the literature of our time, when the humanity is facing the great pandemic of all times. So very thankful to you, and we open the floor for discussion, and participants are very welcome to introduce yourself, and please be brief in your interactions with Dr. Maryam and Hashmi. Very welcome. So Sega, I think you can start the interaction.
Okay, ma'am, thank you for giving us such a wonderful lecture on how we can make use of this silence into writing, into a creative moment. Ma'am, let me ask you one doubt. How far this corona or this quarantine time helped us to eradicate the gender inequality? maybe it is in the writing or in the social scenario.
Pandemic, coronavirus, I don't think that it will finish very soon. I don't want to be negative about it, but this is a fact we should accept. Unfortunately, while the pandemic and while we were concentrating with the pandemic and how the world deal with this, it gives us a negativity regarding the life itself. That's why now I don't follow up with the numbers of the pandemic. I don't follow the news about it. I'm just focusing on my life. Because when I was focusing about the problem, I was just standing on my place, not doing anything. I stopped writing. I stopped reading because I was focusing on what I cannot change. But when I've changed the way how I look about it, then I can now I can tell you my life is back to normal again. I go to the malls, I'm back to my campus, I'm doing my classes, I'm rewriting even my my research papers. So we have, of course, we don't, you have to take your own responsibility. You have to be responsible of your society, of the family. You have to stick with the rules. I know that, but don't give that how can I say it? Don't overthink about it. Don't give it much time. Don't waste your energy on it. You waste your energy on yourself. What do you want to achieve with this pandemic? Through, and how can we deal with it? How can we face it? Through changing how we look into it. I don't know if I answered your question or not. I'm not
Dr.
sure.
Muhammad Habib has asked, do you think that COVID-19 will become part of the general literary scene and the imagination of humanity, just like wars, plague, and other pandemics in history? So will the COVID-19 also will rewrite the history of literature also? I think the question.
I'm sorry, it was for me or for Dr. Muhammad Abed. I'm not sure.
Maryam,
Yes, Dr. Muhammad Habib.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's question from me to you.
Yeah.
Ah.
You are
please. Yes, Muhammad, please.
I have written the question in chat box.
Okay.
So that's why I read it.
Okay. See, there was the Spanish flu, the wars on the lifetime. Of course, it will be a part. It has been part so far in the writings, in the research papers. Till now, we can't run of a fact that this COVID-19 affected our lives, but we can't stop. We can't just stay in our place and see what's going to happen after that and how it's going to affect us. You don't, if there is something, it's like a wave in the sea and you are like a drop in front of the wave. You can't face the wave. You have to know how to be flexible with the wave in the sea. Of course, it has affected many lives in all over the world, and yet it will affect more of lives and more of the writings. This is something normal, that things happening in the world can affect other. It's like the writers, like the mirrors, they can reflect, and they do reflect what's happening in the world by their own point of view. and how do they see from their perspective. So yeah, it's like a war in a way that the war give us the fear of death, and it's the same with the COVID-19. The fear. This is the connection between the COVID-19 and the wars, that we fear the death. But how do we face the death? How to face it? How to be alive? Human being is to be human is to be the strongest creature in the world. We have the ability to face not coronavirus, but more than coronavirus. To be together and to be one society, as the your first guest said, that to be different, to accept each other, to take the responsibility of ourselves and not to be selfish of not taking the responsibility of others as well. Thank you, Mohammed.
So, if any questions?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah, Mrs. Shaheen.
Okay. So, well, we have been going through a fortunate or unfortunate consequence of this pandemic, corona pandemic period, and which has made a global impact also. So, how is the what may be the expectation after this corona pandemic period? What may be happen? I mean, asking this question, how is the teaching field will go in your field of your college? And hope you have understood what I have asked you. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Shahina, thank you for your participation. This is the worstest thing what happened with this coronavirus, the online teaching. I'm not into online teaching at all. I like to be connected with the students. I love actually this online teaching and 100% online classes. It's nothing. It's not something new with my college. We've been teaching online for some courses, but it was only for emergency, like a summer course when we had these students from other Emirates, which are so far, and they want to take the course with the Sharjah campus. So we use the online with them, but it was only for the emergency cases. If the online classes, of course, many of the academics see it like a winning through this pandemic, that, oh, we have succeeded doing the online classes. It is something that we should be proud of it. I'm not proud of doing, because if we continue doing this online after 10 or 15 years, we are the humans are social creatures. We like to interact with each other, and I'm with the old school, the board and making a discussion with the classroom, with the students. I'm not with the online. Of course, I'm with the online classes with this, but only with the emergency cases. If you are from UAE, for example, and you would like to take a course in UK or in US, so it can be a solution. But 100% I'm not with it. But we have to deal with it in the present time. For me, I'm doing now my all classes 100% online. But I hope we get through this pandemic very soon, and the life will be back to normal again. We go back to our campuses. We see our students. We go to the libraries. And it's also the same with the online books. I love the smell of the papers. I love to hold a book while I'm reading the book. I don't like to go through the internet and to make reading through the PDFs, and it can be a solution, but I'd rather to have the connection and a relationship with the book while reading it. So
thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
I think there's a question from a audience going to the YouTube channel, Raman Neela Megam, asking that is it possible to read and write when livelihood for a few people become critical? When the livelihood become critical, shall we go for read and write? Is it a time for reading and writing? It's a question from a YouTube watching audience.
Yes, to read and write, as I mentioned while I talk about it, it's like a cure. But for those who know the way how to get themselves out of the box, of course, reading and writing, if you ask anyone, if you ask the people who are feeling the peace about themselves and they are satisfied about themselves and about the world, that if they are accepting others, of course, that was a reason of that was the reading and the writing practice. So reading is a chance, as I mentioned also, to live many lives. You can live many lives while reading books. You can travel through a book. You can see, you can meet characters through reading. You can be a better human being through reading and writing. Briefly.
Is there any brief questions?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, Nusaiba.
As a plague paved the way for industrialization, can we expect revolution of letters or literature or humanity after this pandemic?
Revolution, you mean? Revolution about
or
what?
Enhancement or something like that, a bulky movement?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question again.
Okay, ma'am. As plague paved the way for industrial revolution, as an after effect of that, can we expect, ma'am said that we got enough silence, enough time to think, enough time to read. Can we expect such an literary enhancement after this pandemic?
Okay.
Or how that will help to have humanity, to re-establish humanity in this world?
Mm-hmm.
Am I clear, ma'am?
Yes, yes. And I hope I will be clear also. See, as I mentioned, humanity faced many kinds of pandemics, wars, Spanish flu, the Great Depression, the 2008 depression, if I don't know how it's called, the economic crisis. These has already affected the literature, the writings. If we don't react of what we're facing through the life, so what is the purpose of writing? There should be, you should interact of what's happening in the life, what's happening in, for example, in Bangladesh, what's happening in Syria, what's happening in Libya, what's happening to the humanity. A writer should be more involved with the humanity issues than his own. So of course, yeah, I believe in that, and that's already happening over here. I don't know about other regions, but here in UAE and in the Arab countries, many books came and many research papers also publish about the pandemic, about the crisis we're facing nowadays.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for the
Thank you, ma'am.
interactions. And before we closing the session, I'm very pleased to thank Dr. Maryam and Hashmi and the entire guests who participated in both these sessions. We have different worlds of view from the southern part of India to the Arabian Peninsula, the philosophic and theoretical and very rich cultural exchanges of words and thoughts in the time of pandemic. And we believe that this is not the time to make the literature in quarantine, and it is the time the literature will be flourished in the time of silence, in the time of social distance. When we are keep physically distance, our hearts will be closer and our tongues and hearts will speak much louder. Our chief guest of the inaugural session, Kanimozhi, have mentioned that we have to go down to earth, considering the people downtrodden, considering the people marginalized, considering the environment, and considering the people around us. That will be the first lesson, and the nature will be, and considering nature as our mother earth will be the lessons for that this pandemic will teach us when it ends in near future. And Dr. Maryam Al-Hashmi has invited our attention how the silence can speak thousand words in the time of pandemic, like the cholera, like the Spanish flu, like the depression, every hurdles in the history of human being we have crossed, and many literary works have come out during the pandemics. And this time, the COVID-19 also will mark as a stepping stone or a turning point in the history of literature, that the silence in quarantine will be speaking thousand words in coming day. With these words, I welcome my colleague Ridisha to have a vote of thanks from us. We had felicitation from our department colleagues, Mr. Sharif and other people. They are not well to be part of this function. So, on behalf of them, I convey my greeting, their greetings to the organizers and the participants and the beloved guests who have come across the world. So I just invite Ms. Renu Rijisha for the vote of thanks.
Honorable MP, Ms. Kanimozhi Karunanidhi, distinguished resource person, Dr. Maryam Abdulla, Ebrahim, Hassan Al-Hashmi, and Dr. Abida Faruqi, respected principal, Dr. Anwar Shafi Sudari, and vice principal, Mr. Muhammad, and all other academicians, research scholars, students, and all other participants in this webinar. Good evening to all. Now we have come to the end of our first day session. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks for this occasion. I, on behalf of English Department, express my sincere gratitude to Ms. Kanimozhi Karunanidhi for inaugurating our webinar in spite of her hectic schedules and engagements. I am very thankful to Dr. Maryam Al-Hashmi for your different views and opinions. It also reshaped our views and thoughts. Then thanks a lot for Abida ma'am for spending all your days with us. I extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Anwar Shafi Sudari, our beloved principal, and Vice Principal Mr. Muhammad for your support and guidance. I take this opportunity to thank all for being with us for this evening, and we all Uraikiradhu. Thanks a lot for being with us. It has been a great pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Now we
Yeah, Shahina. So it's because the voice was not very clear.
so I think that the session is winding up. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear
now.
me?
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
So the session is winding up, and hope you have enjoyed the session.
Thank you very much. And sorry for the weak language of English which I have. I wished if I was more influent to express more clearly, but I hope that the idea was reached to all of us. Thank you for having me.
Silence speaks more.
Thank you.